Good day to all. It's great to have you here with us and with another session of Zoho Live. Today's session is particularly special for three reasons. One is that, unlike the other sessions, this is not just limited to Middle East and Africa. We're going to broadcast this globally and make it available to everyone. Another reason is that it is about a topic that is very important for us, non-negotiably important for us, the topic of privacy and protecting your data. And third, we have our co-founder and CEO, our very own Sridhar Vembu, taking the stage today. It's a great pleasure to have you, sir. It's an honor. Please, without further ado, I hand it over to you, and please take us through today's session.
Yeah. Thank you, Ali. And I'm really happy to be in the session. And as Ali mentioned, we take privacy very seriously in Zoho. And I'm going to make a brief presentation on this. And this was actually originally created by our chief evangelist, Raju Vagesna. And he calls it privacy and adjunct surveillance. There is surveillance that goes on as part of our overall ambience we are in now in the internet. And you will see why we take privacy so seriously once you get a glimpse of this. And first of all, protecting user privacy has always been part of our cultural DNA. And this is from the beginning. And our promise is very simple. We don't own your data, you do. We will never sell your data. We will never do advertisements. And so this is the three promises we make. Our business model is very simple. We get paid by the customers to provide you software. You own your data. And we strongly believe ads, surveillance, and privacy don't mix. When you have an ad-based business model that's built on surveillance of the user, privacy goes out the window, really. So that's really the reality, and we will see why. And with our own free products, like Zoho Mail is offered free up to a certain level, and we never considered ads. We have never actually ever considered ads as part of the mix, and we will never consider ads. And now it's 25 years, so there's some durability to our promise here. We've been around. And we also extended GDPR rights globally to all our users. So any user of Zoho anywhere in the world can come to us and ask for example, their personal data protection or erasure, and we act as though GDPR rights also apply to them. So that's something that's very important because we have built the technology to comply with GDPR. We are complying with it actually in a global level. And we took another important stance on privacy in 2020. And this is where we are blocking what we call adjunct surveillance to protect the privacy of users. What is adjunct surveillance? And this is a phrase we coined, and it is surveillance by all the internet giants, whether it's Google or Facebook or Twitter, that goes on as part of anywhere you visit, any website you visit, any app you use, there is some kind of a surveillance tracking going on there. And users are being tracked. You are being tracked right now. And so we are paying for free services with our data. That's really what is going on today. And surveillance companies are now, they are not just gathering information when they use their apps in their website. They're actually using it all across the web, all across the app landscape without the user's permission. That's very important to keep in mind. And here are some headlines. This came last year, and so Google collected personal health data on millions of Americans, and that's it's without, of course, their permission. And there's Google and MasterCard had a secret deal to track retail sales, and so your store purchase data is going to Google servers, even if the the purchase happened in some retail that is completely not connected to Google at all. And then leaked documents expose secretive market for the web browsing data. There is actually an active marketplace where every search, every click, every buy on every site, and that's what they sell. So, and major corporate clients they have for this. So this is how the landscape is. And all these deals, backroom deals, are done without the user's permission. There is trade, active trade in users' data, your data, our data, without the permission of the users. That's what is going on. And we wanted to take a strong stance against this practice. And in fact, this is not just restricted to B2C, the consumer-oriented apps or services. It also actually in B2B. And and the way this happens is the same surveillance companies are actually tracking users on their properties, on their websites, for example. And these are the trackers that you find on websites. And those trackers are everywhere on B2B websites. So here are a few samples. Salesforce, and you will see all the trackers on the, we have shown Facebook Pixel, Twitter Analytics, DoubleClick, Google. DoubleClick and Google are from the same company, but they have two separate trackers there on the Salesforce website. These are all still there. And SAP, you have all these trackers going on, and there's a lot of them you can see. And Workday, all of these trackers on their website. NetSuite and Slack, can go on and on. There's all these are trackers on their website. That means that when you visit a Slack website, all the information is leaking away to all these advertising companies. These trackers are going there. And you can keep going, actually. And there is a convenient site. You can go to builtwith.com and put slash any website, and it'll give you the tracking information. And we actually took a stance to have zero trackers. And that is basically our, and this is, since surveillance is happening everywhere, we took this stance. And for us, even if such tracking is legally acceptable in many jurisdictions, we did not find it morally acceptable. That has been our stance, that this is wrong. That so much tracking of, when you visit a website, you have a reasonable assumption that maybe that website knows about you, but not the entire internet should not know about you, right? That's what is really going on right now. And we will not be part of this practice. So we decided to stop all trackers, third-party trackers on our website completely. So it's only a transaction between the visitor of the website and us, no third parties involved in it. And we actually took this very strong stance. And we removed all the trackers, basically. We removed all the trackers. We removed Facebook, we removed Twitter, we removed Google, and we removed trackers from all the companies. And in order to serve the users with our own site, we developed the tools to actually serve you without, and since we don't share any of the data with any ad company, this data is purely there as part of our software, really. And then that's your data and as part of our software. And the data belongs to you now. And it's not traded around. It's not going to anywhere, going to any third party. So there are no Trojan horses, basically. And there is a cost to doing this. We clearly, when we remove all trackers, we lose certain the way that what the behavioral data that these companies provide. But we decided we will sacrifice that. We actually don't want that. We don't want to do business that way. And we actually we can do this because the tech stack Zoho runs on is entirely Zoho's. We run on our own data centers. We run either open source like Linux or entirely our own stack that we wrote. So, which means that when you hit our website, when you hit our data centers, there's no third-party tracking, nothing going on here. And we can make that guarantee. And the public cloud companies have ad-based business units. So they sell you cloud services, they have ad-based business units. And as I've said before, ads and privacy don't mix. They'll say, we will have analytics. But in reality, there's no Chinese firewall between these things. Okay, so there is a real mixture going on in this. So that's why we should be very wary of these companies. And we encourage the B2B industry to follow our lead in this productive and privacy. We have taken a strong stance. We have zero trackers. It has been about 1.5 years since, and we have learned to do business with this. We have done well, actually. So which is why our slogan is choose privacy, choose Zoho. And with this, I want to take a brief 10 minutes to alert you on our stance on this, and then open up for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sridhar. Thank you. It was very informative. There are a lot of questions and comments coming in. So, and I see actually some people trying to apply for jobs in the comments. I would encourage them to visit our careers website. It's very hard to filter that out. So, a couple of questions coming in. I saw one question, Sridhar, which is interesting. When you mentioned that we do not own the data, and someone was wondering how come we don't own the data? What does that even mean?
Use our Zoho CRM and put your data, your company data, that is your data. That means when you can take it out, and you also can say delete the data from your servers because I'm going elsewhere, and then we delete it. The data is purely yours. That's what we mean by that. Similarly, you use Zoho Mail, it's your data. You use Zoho Show, create a presentation, that's your data. So that's what we mean by that. It's very clear that we use our services, we use our software. The data you're putting there is your data. That's what we mean.
So essentially, we are the custodian of our users' data.
In fact, we take it seriously in the sense you've entrusted the data with us to safekeep it, and that is all we do. And then if you don't want us to keep the data, we just delete it. That's it. It's very simple.
Understood. Very well. Thank you so much. So, just coming from our offering, because we have a lot of apps and we have a very robust platform after 25 years of working on it. A question comes and says, how did Zoho manage to create such a strong privacy offering? And what technology development that went behind it? What was the thought process when we started? And was it from the early days that you had this in mind?
Yeah. So we actually, this ad-based business model never tempted us from the very beginning. We always believed that there has to be an alternative to this because we recognize the inherent trade-offs, contradictions involved in this. And particularly as it comes to business software, where these ad models have a serious issue. And even consumers are recognizing it. In fact, Apple is taking a very strong stance on privacy recently, and that actually has led to, the iPhone being even more dominant as a privacy-oriented phone. So the customers worldwide are responding to this. And our own tech stack, we built all of it internally, along with open source like Linux I mentioned, like a Postgres database. These are all well-known open source technologies we tend to use also in our data centers. But other than that, all of the software stack is built by us, which means that we can actually make this guarantee that we know what is there in our code, so we know what we do with it. We can give the guarantee to our users that choose privacy, choose Zoho. That's our guarantee.
Thank you. Yeah, this having a full stack approach is quite interesting because once we own everything end to end from hardware to the last layer of software, means that there can't be no leakage. So this is an amazing thing. And what would be your message to other vendors? There are a lot of good companies out there, and they're trying to be ethical and protect privacy. So from a full stack approach, how would you do it if you were another company, another tech company?
Yeah, this actually there is clearly our full stack approach has advantages. It allows us to provide these guarantees. But even when people rely on public cloud or third-party technologies, they still, for example, not having trackers is a major. It's a decision every company can take on their website. And in reality, these days, we know, for example, take the follow me around type of ads. When you purchase something, a pair of shoes, you see ads for the same shoes all over the internet when you visit other websites. We have all had this experience. Well, what use do those ads have? You already purchased the shoes anyway, right? What's the point in showing those ads again? But that's actually what a lot of these surveillance technologies come down to. For all the AI, really, they're not that smart about all this anyway. So, and that means that the marketers are actually often wasting money in collecting endless amounts of data, which don't provide any particular insight. They would be better off educating their customers and spending money on building a better product and also lowering the price to the extent you are spending less on marketing and lower the price to the customer. That's what I would recommend vendors do. That's what we do. We keep our prices very affordable because we focus our efforts on R&D, creating a better user experience, and not so much on the marketing part of it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that actually sometimes I am asked this question now that you don't track users, how do you market? And so what are the other channels that we are using that helps us marketing?
Yeah, this is a interesting one. Maybe think back to marketing, say 20, 25 years ago. Somehow companies did marketing before all this tracking was invented, right? And those channels often still work. Okay, I mean billboards, for example. The real world offers plenty of marketing channels, and people still read newspapers and still standard ads that work. Okay, you can have YouTube ads without all the tracking. For example, we do YouTube ads, but we don't have any tracking data. We actually, you go to some tech enthusiast blog and uh, give an ad. You know that tech enthusiasts are going to see it. It doesn't require that we know exactly who they are, right? We just know that this particular blog or this particular channel attracts a certain kind of audience. Then we can advertise that. So we advertise, actually, we have advertised on basketball games in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. We have advertised on the BART trains in the Bay Area. So all of these we have done. So there's still a lot of marketing channels left. We just have to think a little more creatively, come out of this box. That's what I would say.
That is so true. It happened to me as well. Last year, more than a year ago, when you put some limit, globally on some ad spend. First of all, we were like lost for a few days maybe, because we're so used to having certain channels of spending on ads. Then we went back to the drawing board and started doing some events. Zoho Live is one of those products, the podcast, virtual events, in-person events. And we saw that with the same budget, and often, to our surprise, with much lower budget, we could create more engagements, more valuable conversations. And of course, we could close more businesses because it's really personal. It's not just an ad with a click. It was such an eye-opening experience for us internally as well. So we have you to thank for. We had one question that was projected. I missed it. If I can ask, yes, I believe this is in line with the same theme. How organizations can do marketing on digital platforms with keeping privacy intact. I believe you touched on it, but if you want to expand on it, please.
Think about, for example, YouTube as a platform. Now, YouTube has a lot of channels. People have their influencers who have their post their videos, all of that, right? Podcasts, all that. And we can select ones that have affinity to our audience. We know that they're kind of roughly who watches those channels. And then we can go and advertise them. We don't need to know exactly who watches it, but we know roughly what kind of audience is watching it. So that's an example even on digital platforms. Similarly, a lot of things you do on LinkedIn itself. You don't particularly need the data of the particular user, but you can still get effective marketing messages across. So there's still a lot of digital platforms where you can actually do this. Okay, and then there's of course the real world itself offers, and I mentioned all these. And you mentioned Ali, events like Zoho Live. Well, you conduct these, you provide. In fact, one thing I will suggest for all marketing folks watching this: the best marketing that I find personally is education. Education. And why education? Because think about Zoho itself. We have a complex mix of products. Definitely not everyone who comes to our website is going to be an expert in all those products. And they are coming to us not only just to look for products, also to look for what kind of technologies do I need to run my business. And if we explain that well, we invest in education, and then they stay with us and they look at this, then they learn. And this is actually, for every marketer really out there, the first priority has to be education. And then, and I myself have found the value. For example, I had to buy an air conditioning unit about a couple of years ago, and I learnt about air conditioning units by visiting the various vendor websites, downloading their brochures, their white papers, and reading them. So the marketing people there educated me, and 2 or 3 vendors I did that. I got a pretty good idea. So that's an example where, in this case, though, no, the marketers would not have known who is doing the reading, but by creating that content, they helped me arrive at a good decision. So, and they educated me about air conditioning, right? So that's an example of how what you can do even on digital platforms without violating privacy.
Spot on about training and education. So if marketers see themselves as educators, that will change a lot of factors. And within that space of educating as a marketer, there's also a lot of learning. So you also do marketing, market study, market research. So every time we are in an educating mode, we're also in a learning mode, and we learn from our customer. These could lead into new features or fixing some issues, or at least the way we create experiences for our users. So that's an amazing angle to take. We have one more question coming up from Sandhya. Okay, wonderful. From Khalij Times. Have you estimated what is it? What's the kind of revenue Zoho is losing annually by implementing no tracker policy on your solution? That's question number one.
Yeah, it's we definitely think maybe it might be a sub 5%, maybe a few percentage points, but that's not the main point. We actually gained a lot of credibility, and a lot more users have come who may not have come if we had we didn't do all this. So on the whole, I'd like to think it's a wash. Maybe we lost some, we gained some, but in any case, the loss wasn't anywhere as much as we would have estimated in the beginning. But we also gained a lot in terms of credibility and trust. So that's what the real deal is. What's the second question? Projected, please.
Can we have the second question from Sandhya? What have been your alternate source of revenue after implementing no tracker policy?
Yeah, our customer base is approximately similar as before and after, but now more privacy conscious customers are coming to us. If choose privacy, choose Zoho, resonates for a lot of customers worldwide. So they are choosing us. And that is, you can think of it as an alternative source of revenue, but it's really more of the same source of revenue from more privacy conscious customers. That's how I will put it.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. So how do you see the future, Sridhar, in terms of, okay, this is it's largely an ad revenue-based marketplace for the advertisers and also for the ad companies. Some people set up businesses. Their business model is about tracking and making money off people's data. As they say, there's no free beer. There's no, privacy also comes at a cost. How do you see the future? How can we lead the future that is privacy conscious?
Yeah. We look at Gdpr, for example. That's the kind of the first big legislation on this whole topic. And now there's POPI in South Africa, protection of personal information. And so this whole idea is spreading around the world now. It's no longer business as usual. In 2021, you cannot act like it is 2011, for example. That the customers worldwide are much more savvy about this. They understand the real importance of privacy. And governments everywhere, regulators are stepping in now more and more. This means that vendors everywhere, including the ad-based or surveillance companies, have to now tread much more cautiously than ever before. And it also gives rise to a new set of companies that are built from the ground up as privacy conscious companies, much like Zoho has been built. So there will be another round of innovation in this, where new companies arise that put privacy first as a major goal in their software design. So all this, I think, is the predictable consequence I see. And one thing is, and there is also a regulatory push to break up some of these companies so that all this data is not accumulating in one place. Break it up. And that's also a push that we are seeing in the US Congress, maybe sometimes in EU, all of those places. So, which means that the next 10 years will not look anything like the last 10 years, and we are going to see action on a variety of fronts. And along with it, customers everywhere demanding that companies put privacy first. That also will have a real impact in the market.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We have a bunch of more questions. Next one is going to show up in a second. Does Zoho offer any guarantee on disposing data when we terminate the subscription contract? This is from Dattatray.
Yeah. This is why I mentioned this is your data. We do have a deletion policy that is ahead of the industry standard in this area. And we are actually working hard to even tighten this further. How quickly can we dispose of the data? Because for redundancy purposes, we may have made copies of it. We want to ensure that all of those copies are deleted as well, even for backup copies, all that. So we are actually writing our software to comply with the data deletion as soon as the user terminates the service. And we are actually quite good in this area. And we are, because regulations require that in GDPR, all of that, and we are actually now expanding this worldwide too, all those capabilities.
Thank you. Next question is from Prasanna. Is your software compliant with privacy laws of Europe GDPR, US laws, and other Asia-Pacific laws?
Absolutely. In fact, that's what I mentioned in my presentation. GDPR rights we have expanded. GDPR is the toughest legislation in this area. We have extended those rights to our users worldwide. That means any of our users anywhere in the world can request, for example, their personal data be deleted. We will honor it as though they are coming from a EU country and they are subject to GDPR. So that's what we do.
Wonderful. And we are becoming POPI compliant. It's actually almost done.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
South Africa, which is quite an important market for us.
Important market, yes.
Wonderful. So next question is from, well, I can't see the full, I can actually. Does Zoho developers have access to our data?
Yeah. So the way this works is, so we have a clear identified, so the servers are under our control really, but to access the data, no developer can access the data, the personal data of any user. So only they can update the software and they can debug the machines, but accessing the data will require a 3 or 4 checks where there will be serious questions asked, why anybody asked, and it's a firing offense if there is any data access, any breach in Zoho. So we have actually very strict safeguards for our own developers accessing any user data.
Okay, thank you. Okay, $1 million question. When will we have Zoho servers for Africa? If Ali wants to take this. Okay, so I'll give you my 2 cents, but of course Sridhar can say the word. We do have it in our plans. Sridhar earlier this year announced that our data center in the UAE will be set up this year to comply with the local rules and regulations. There are a number of and I'm just talking about Middle East and Africa. Of course, South Africa is top of the list. And as soon as we can, we will make sure that South African data is kept in South Africa. Sridhar, if you want to.
More broadly, we are actually rapidly expanding our data center footprint all around the world. And we are going region by region by region. And as we speak right now, 2 or 3 separate data center activities going on right now. And so by next year, we will have some good news on this front. So that's all I can say right now. Thank you.
So and I'm just going to expand on that I just mentioned South Africa as an example, because in a broader sense, in Africa also, we are going as the regulation asks us to comply. Larger countries like Kenya, Nigeria, Egypt, of course, and my geography is not that good to list all the countries, but we are going to comply with each one of these countries because every one of them are very important for us. But overall, because we are GDPR compliant, which is the strictest, most strict regulation ever, I think we are in a good position to be able to protect everybody's data up to standards. Great. Not sure if there are any more questions coming our way. Sridhar, oh, there's another one. From Economic Times, Dia Reki wanted to know if about your view on how the new IT rules will impact privacy. Not sure if this is exclusive to India or somewhere else.
This is an India specific question. Really, the government in India and everywhere, they have to balance between privacy rights for users and legitimate law enforcement duties, keeping the citizens safe from terrorism and other issues. So, and this means, and I want to contrast two separate things. If you are in the jurisdiction of a country, the laws of that country apply to you and apply to us in that when we operate in that country. We have a data center in that country, we have to comply with the laws of that country. That's absolute. Which means that whatever the laws are in that country, and we have to respect that. And that's true for any company operating there, even though some companies now pretend as though they're above the law where they operate. The second issue there is the surveillance I'm talking about in this is a lot of it is mostly private sector surveillance, not what the governments know. And there they have always said that what your government knows about you is a contract between you as a citizen of that state and your government. And that is not a private company's business to enter into that issue. Like, we cannot actually give you any extra rights over and above what your own government has granted you, your own constitution has granted you. It has to be clear on this, because you cannot expect a private sector entity, a private company operating in accordance with the laws, to grant some extra privileges just because we may be operating from a different jurisdiction. That's not actually a realistic expectation, nor is it actually enforceable anywhere. But what we can do is we protect you first from private sector surveillance by the giants I talked about. On the government issue itself, it's very important to recognize, and this is in particular in India, when we operate in India, we are subject to Indian laws. So we have to abide by whatever the law of the land is, and the government has some reasonable restrictions on access to data, all of that. So investigative access, all of that. And this is true in Europe, this is true in Australia, this is true in America, this is true everywhere actually. Each jurisdiction has its own laws on when the law enforcement can request a particular user's data, and we have to comply. So that is really what the issue is, and this should not be confused with the private sector surveillance that I have extensively talked about here. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a great distinction. Private sector's adjunct surveillance on our data for profit and private use versus what is law and regulation in every land. That is a big difference there. I believe we have one more question coming our way. Does Zoho provide SOC2 and HIPAA compliant solutions?
And HIPAA, some divisions have already complied, and we are working on it at the Zoho level. And we'll have good news on that soon.
Great. Well, while we're waiting for the next question, would you like to share something? We're kind of going towards the end of our session today about the vision, how we're going to see the future.
Yeah. So we actually at Zoho have a very all-encompassing view of business software, and our Zoho One platform really is about being the operating system for business, solving your entire business need with Zoho. And that's and we already have a really credible platform there, and we are expanding on it. We are deepening the capabilities, and we are also making it much more developer friendly. So that is how we see our company, and we are investing heavily in the overall R&D, and our culture of investment means that you are the software that you depend on to run your business is constantly updated, constantly growing, and keeping up with the times, and constantly innovating. That is our promise to you as a customer. And we have been in business 25 years, so we have a track record of this. And we are a private company. We have never raised outside money. So which means that we don't actually have to dance to the tunes of Wall Street and quarter to quarter profits, and we can keep the long term interests of our users. We can put our users first, which is what we do at Zoho, and that we will continue. And we want to. Our goal is to fulfill our destiny, which is to emerge as a top five technology player in the world. And we are rapidly well on our way towards that goal. And you will see a lot more innovation from Zoho. That is what I want to assure our users here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sridhar. We also look forward to that. So that's, oh, there's another question. Okay, let's see it. How is data protected from internal employees? I believe this was somehow asked.
Posted. Yeah. So as I said, there is, as a normal course, developers or no other employee has access to the data, and there is multiple levels of logs and approvals. Everything, first of all, everything is logged. Whenever anybody accesses our system, that attempt is logged, and they have to go through why they need access to particular server, and all of that is audited. They are answerable to an audit committee why what particular server is accessed, and that is how we protect our data. Ultimately, it is about making sure that you have the compliance rules in place and severe consequences for non-compliance. That is how we ensure this.
Thank you. Thank you. So that's a wrap for why is privacy not just a legal application, but an ethical choice in Zoho. And we hope to see more and more companies make it an ethical choice before wanting to comply with the rules. Of course, we all have to do that, but the ethics of doing business, we are a living proof that it is possible to scale from few users to probably almost 70 million users, ethically respecting people's privacy and people's data. Thank you so much, Sridhar. It was a great pleasure to have you here. This session will be, thank you, recorded, available in our social channels. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them there. I know Sridhar is very active on Twitter. He's very responsive. So please feel free to ask any of us questions you have about this topic and other topics. Thanks again, Sridhar. Have a great day. Thank you all for attending, and have a great day ahead. Thank you. Bye-bye.